We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world. It's a spiritual combat. It's a spiritual combat. It's a spiritual combat. It's a spiritual combat. It's time to get into formation. We gotta get ready for the battle. So call on your brothers and sisters. We gotta turn back to the scriptures. Stop making it all about you. Them preachers, they got it confused. Come out of her. Cause Yahuwah is our deliverer. Don't be ashamed. Don't be ashamed, cause nobody's perfect. We're called by his name. We're called by his name. Seek him to be worthy. We should be coming together. There's power and unity. It's time to come into the order, cause we are a living prophecy. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world. It's a spiritual combat. It's a spiritual combat. It's a spiritual combat. It's a spiritual combat. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world. It's a spiritual combat. It's a spiritual combat.
Shalom, y'all. Shalom. It's Michael Israel here, and as you could tell by the title that I'm sure you've seen, the title of today's show is What Being Sensitive Means. Okay? What being sensitive means. So yeah, we're going to get in hot and heavy and break that down. I am in no rush today because I'm off today. My job gave me the day off because today is the day of mourning, the national day of mourning for, the death of President Bush. I'm not even going to get into all that. But anyway, let me see what we got here. Let me get everything up and running. I see some folks are still coming in. Shalom, Sister Hicks. Good morning. It's good to see you in there. Good morning. Good to see you there, sis. All right, let's see. Let me make sure. There we go. But yeah, so the title of today's show is What Being Sensitive Means. And as always, like I said, I try to focus on these core level biblical concepts that have the kind of the broadest effects on improving our walk. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, it's about the whole book. Majority of what's in there is pointing you to get your mind right, to get your spirit, the way you behave and everything in line with the word. Okay? And that is that's a core level change there. Shalom, Sister Alita. Good to see you in there. All right. So yeah, let me check one more thing here and we'll get started. All right. All right. So again, what being sensitive means, and one of the places I see it getting, because we're going to hit it from both sides, what it means to be sensitive as a woman and what it means to be sensitive, what being sensitive as a man. Typically when you hear the world say, hey, you need to be sensitive, and you hear it gets pushed on men a lot. A lot of times they'll tell women, oh, you're too sensitive. You know what I'm saying? But for the men, they tell the men you have to be more sensitive. And that gets misinterpreted. A lot of men who are struggling in their relationships and stuff like that, is because it is because they're not sensitive. But I think when they're told to be sensitive, they take it in the wrong way. And then with a lot of women, they tell the women, you're too sensitive. And then again, they don't have the proper understanding of that word. So they take it to mean the wrong way. And particularly the way a lot of people, the society interprets that word is to be emotional. You know what I'm saying? To be reactive and out of control of your emotions. And so the way men interpret that, being sensitive, is they're going to cry more. They're just going to let go and be more vulnerable and reactive and all that. And what they literally do is end up accelerating the disaster in their relationship. You know what I'm saying? Hey, shalom, John. Good to see you in there. Shalom. So, yeah. So they end up accelerating the demise of their relationship or their masculinity, and therefore how attractive women are to them and everything like that. They say, hey, you need to be more emotional, and stuff like that. Again, we interpret that the wrong way. But what it is that the women are trying to convey something that they can't properly articulate. Okay? So what is the proper biblical understanding of what being sensitive is? And it's real simple, is knowing what's going on in here, knowing what's going on with your thoughts, being aware of certain behaviors that can be hidden from you, being aware of behaviors that don't line up with the Most High Yah's word, okay? And not surface level external stuff. Like that verse I keep going to over and over again because it's so powerful. When the Messiah said, first clean the inside of the glass, then clean the outside. First get your mind right. Get your personality, whatever you want to call it, your heart right, whatever you want to call that, getting your spirit right. It's all the same thing, basically, is getting that behavior right. Can't tell you the number of Hebrews I've run into who they got the Bible knowledge. They got the scriptures memorized. They got the doctrine down. They are articulating it properly. They're keeping the surface laws, statutes, and commandments, and they know how to do them, and they understand them deeply, and they can break them down to you. They got all the feast days down and all the outside stuff, but then as you begin to, and for me, it happens very quickly because I'm able to discern spirits, as you begin to look at the inside, you see the inside's dirty, and they're just trying to mask it over with mechanical law adherence in a mechanical way. You understand what I'm saying? And they're not getting and understanding the spirit of the law, which is, and why don't they get that? Like, they totally miss that. And the reason why this is so true, the reason why this is facts, the reason why this is so on point, and the reason why it's so prevalent today is because it was prevalent back then. You had people who were, you didn't know, ain't nobody out here on the planet walking that had a biblical understanding like the people the Messiah was talking to when he said that verse, first clean the inside of the glass, then clean the outside. He told them they're like whited sepulchres and all that. Okay? Nobody had biblical understanding like that on that level. And they still didn't get it. You had people who walked with Christ, Judas, and he still missed it. You know, you had one of the wisest people in the world, or the wisest man in the world, King Solomon, and he still didn't get it. It doesn't take, listen, it doesn't take a ton of Bible knowledge to realize, and let me make sure I say this correctly, because I want to make sure I use the right vocabulary when I say this. It doesn't take a ton of biblical studying to do this. It takes biblical understanding to realize it takes the Most High Yah to guide you and lead you to show you this. What am I trying to say? It takes the right spirit to want to. I'll put it to you like this. Here's a better way to say it, because I want to make sure one of the key things I try to do when I'm teaching this stuff is make sure there's no gray areas, because like they say, the devil's in the details. So if you if you say things vaguely and there's wiggle room, people are gonna wiggle. So I try to make it so there's no room to wiggle, so everybody get proper understanding. So look, what life does, what problems and pain in your life do, is it's a mirror, it's a reflection of yourself. And the Word of God is showing you that, hey, what you need to do is look at this reflection. That's what the law, statutes, and commandments are doing. That's what the amazing thing, the genius, the sheer wisdom of these law, statutes, and commandments is that when you really begin to look at them in a spiritual level, is you see they make you look at yourself. They force you to face yourself. They force you to face you. And the common theme running through the whole book is face yourself, face your flaws. That's why he pushes humbleness and meekness, and he detests pride, because pride is the primary thing that's going to just make you kind of, oh yeah, well, it's going to make you make excuses, okay, and not have that spirit of boldness to face whatever is thrown at you. And the thing that people have the most fear, because I just did that lesson on the spirit of boldness, thing that people have the most fear about is facing themselves. And the thing is, the reason it's so deceptive is that they don't even know that that's what's going on. And this brings us to why I did this topic that I'm doing today, what being sensitive means. Okay? And what being sensitive means is being willing to face yourself. And how do you know, like, what's the process? How do you know how to face yourself? How do you know how to look at yourself? The way you know how to look at yourself is by the problem areas in your life. And we're going to talk about me. I'm going to talk about my journey and how I came into this. You know, some of the areas I had to face that I was hiding from. And the more personal, the more universal, this is the same areas a lot of people face this in. Shalom, Yah, all day. Shalom, good to see you in there. Shalom, Brian, good to see you in there. Shalom. So, one of the main areas I had to, one of the heaviest areas I had to face myself in, or when I started out, and really the way I started on this journey was like, I knew I was socially off, I guess, or wasn't socially typical. I knew there was something different about me, but I didn't know what. And then, and and I knew it was a good thing, okay? But then I also knew there were areas in my life where I was off, and that there was something that needed to be fixed or repaired and improved, okay? So the journey, the area where it was the most painful at was when it came to relationships, because I didn't have any long-term relationship success in my life. And, at that time, I was in my late 20s, getting ready to go into my early 30s, and there were just no answers. I tried to go into church, there were no answers. And I said, it got to a point where I was like, you know what? I said, hey, I'm backing off from this church. Ain't no answers here. I'm going to go find them myself. And I began digging. And I slowly, but that was the beginning of the process, the early stages. And it was the beginning of a path that the Most High put me on, that at the time I was unaware of, that eventually led me back to His Word in a true way, though. In the truth, you know what I'm saying? Put me on the real path. But one of the most humiliating, and don't get this, don't get it twisted with society. They act like humiliation is like one of the worst things that you could do, that could happen. Humiliation is a good thing. It's good to be humiliated. Because what? Humiliation humbles you. It kills that pride. And one of the most lowest humiliating points was me saying, you know what? I don't understand women. I'm not successful with them. I haven't been successful with women in long-term relationships. And I don't know what to do. And then I was sitting there like, I can't believe I'm trying to look up how to understand women on the internet. Like, it was like a humiliating thing. But then the more and more I began to search, the more it began to get built up. Okay? And more and so that was the knocking down, the tearing down process. Another part of the tearing down process of the humiliating process was the point where the last time that the last relationship I had where it didn't last, where it didn't last for the long term. The woman just left me, and it was in a humiliating way. You know what I'm saying? And I was just totally clueless to what I was doing wrong. You know what I'm saying? So that was the tearing down process, the lowest point, and it humbled me. But I had a bold, earnest desire to get this thing right and declared war on it. And so that was the beginning of that process. And that was, little did I know, that was the Spirit slowly beginning to guide me and take me on the path to get to Him, so I could walk with Him in spirit and in truth. You know what I'm saying? So that was the beginning of that process. And, and like I said, it took me being humiliated. And I can't tell you the number of people that, it was a cycle of a process. You know what I'm saying? It was a process where I began to be, like at the time I didn't know what was going on, but now I deliberately go through humbling process in certain areas and am honest with myself about certain issues and work through those issues in a humble, sincere way, it's not something that just kind of, I don't know what's going on. I purposely do it now, okay? Because I see the benefits of it, and that's book. And in doing that, it increases my spiritual discernment to where now I'm able to discern people's spirits, and I discern people's spirits, and sometimes it's speaking so loud that sometimes I find myself, oh no, that can't be, but it increases your spiritual discernment, and you can quickly see where people are, trying to distance themselves from facing themselves, from humiliation. They have a fear of humiliation and a spirit of fear about humiliation, and that spirit of fear ends up turning into pride, and they're not willing to be humiliated and be honest with themselves about problem areas in their lives. You know what I'm saying? And because of that, these problems, a lot of times they, like I talk about all the time, they stuff these problems away into a dark part of their spirit off in a corner, and they, without light, they're like moss, or not moss, mold. They're like mold, black mold. What's that, poisonous mold? Without light, they just fester and grow and grow and grow. And then when you begin dealing with people, you see that they have a lopsided spirit. You see what I'm saying? So because they're not sensitive and all that to what's going on, they struggle with it, So Brother Brian, he put stubbornness. That's right. Yep. And I'm glad you said that, Brother Brian, because what did he say? He said we are a stubborn and stiff-necked people. He said we're a stubborn and a stiff-necked people. We, it's hard to get us to look at something, but this the other thing. When we do humble down and that neck gets loosened up and them kinks get worked out and that neck's able to move, and we are strong on the right path. You know what I'm saying? We are strong when we get on the right path. All right, my man, Yehukanan, he said, you and Akoti Koya is a perfect match. Yeah. And I'll say this, and we'll talk about that too, John, about being socially awkward. Matter of fact, man, I'm glad you put that word in there, those two words. So I'm going to do a lesson, a series on overcoming social awkwardness. And I'll briefly talk about that in this lesson here today. All right, dismiss. All right. So yeah, I ain't got to go to work today, so I could drag this out. So yeah, and y'all feel free to put comments in. I'm not in a rush. So yeah, I'm gonna get it in. But social awkwardness, that's a big one. And it all draws back to the same thing. It is being willing to face your weaknesses, and being aware of what your weaknesses are, or where the areas that the problem areas in your life are, and how do you know where the problem areas in your life are at? Where do you start at? That's another question. Is what's the big area in your life right now? Like, what's the big area in your life where you got issues at? What's the big red flag? What's the emptiness you're feeling in yourself? Like with me, the problem area that I was facing in my life was loneliness. Like, I wanted to be in a relationship, and I hadn't been in any long-term relationships, and I didn't have meaningful relationships, friendships, all that stuff like that. I didn't have it. You know what I'm saying? Um, so that was where I, uh, that's where I had to start at. I was like, so I had to begin asking these humiliating questions. And that was the Most High Yah beginning to brick by brick break down my structure, tear it down, break me all the way down. You know what I'm saying? He let that girl break up with me in a humiliating way. And I walk around hurt. And the pain was just radiating. And I had to keep asking those questions. And I can go into that. It's like when people go through these breakups, okay? You go through a breakup and that pain's there. Like, and when you go through a breakup and that pain you feel from a breakup, there's a whole bunch of stuff like that that I could go into about that. Like the reason why people go through what they call heartbreak is because they were in sin. The Bible says stay away from inordinate affections. Okay? Inordinate affections is unusually excessive liking or fondness for someone or something. So that heartbreak people are going through is because they've put their emotions into somebody too much. Okay? So what the process is, what step one in the process is becoming aware of where you need to be looking at. All's pain is, all stress is, all's depression is, okay, is there's something you need to be looking at. It's trying to get your attention because there's something you really need to be looking at and focusing on, okay? And what happens a lot of times, I'm not saying this is every time, okay? But what happens a lot of times is indecision. What stress is, stress simply means there's a decision you have to make. And if you don't make that decision, it turns into stress. And if you continue to neglect to make a decision in some area, a definite peace of mind decision in some area, that stress eventually turns into depression. Okay? And it gets worse and worse. Okay? So a lot of the times, majority of times, that's what's going on. And a lot of times that decision isn't being made because what? There's no wisdom. There's no understanding. You don't know what the heck's going on, or that it's even a decision that's required to be made. Sometimes there's people you need to cut off, and that's what's causing the stress. And you don't realize I need to make a decision. Am I going to stay with them and do this, or am I going to cut them off? You know? And like that was the decision back when I went through that breakup. I need to let them go. All right, boom. But I was still stressed. I was like, well, why am I still stressed? Well, it turned out I was still stressed because I didn't know why this cycle I saw the cycle and why it kept repeating itself. You get a lot of women, they can't figure out why men don't want to stay with them, you know, and they can't figure out what they're doing wrong, how they're undermining themselves. Like me, I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong as a man. You know what I'm saying? So that stress was still there. And it was kind of depression too, because I was down, you know. So it was still there. But once I made the decision, I was like, I don't care what happens. I was like, I'm going to get this thing figured out. I said, I know this wisdom is out here in the world some daggone where. And wherever it's at, I'm going to find it. And that's when I embarked on my journey. You know what I'm saying? And when I made that decision, the stress left. That stress turned into a warfare, earnest desire spirit. It turned into that stress and depression energy changed into another type of energy. You know what I'm saying? A drive, an earnest drive. Like a fire, I don't know. I don't have a proper vocabulary to articulate what it was, but it turned into that. And, it wasn't like a year or so, a year and some change later, where I had totally reinvented myself. And when it came to women, not in a totally healthy way, because I wasn't in the truth, but I could pull women like that. You know what I'm saying? I got real dangerously good with knowing how to meet women quick and do what I wanted and learning how to, but in an unhealthy way. And then soon the Most High pulled me out of that, because it wasn't 2 years after I made that declaration I met my wife, or probably not even 2 years. It was not long. Maybe a year and 6 months or something, I met my wife. 2 years later, I was making a family. It's like the goal I had put my whole life focus on, I attained it. Because that's part of what happened. The goal I had set my whole life's focus on, at the most 2 years prior, I had attained it and blew it out the window. And all with being sensitive and aware and beginning to look at, hey, what's going on in me? Okay? And I had reinvented myself as a masculine man and overcome a lot of things that were hindering me and holding me back. Like Yehukanan said, like social awkwardness. That was one of the things, especially when it came to women, social awkwardness with dealing with women. That was a big area. Like I said, I'm going to do a whole series on that. Let me write that down. So, yeah, that was a whole area, and I'm going to do that series sooner than later. But social awkwardness, when it came to dealing with women, when it came to dealing with other things, when it came to dealing with pressure situations and stuff like that, so I've developed myself and overcame that social awkwardness with being sensitive, learning the process. Like, cause I literally have a process with overcoming spiritual issues, if you want to word it that way, or issues that I find in myself. Okay. And it started, like I said, talking about my past testimony, when it came to, it started with women. You know what I'm saying? That was the thing that woke me up, was my social awkwardness when it came to dealing with women, like I was talking about earlier. And that's how I overcame it, is just a process and a spirit that was willing to be humbled, killing that pride, because pride can be a lot of it, and having that spirit of boldness, being willing to go through the pain. And that's the process. A lot of people ask, well, why is there pain? Why is there pain in my life? Why am I stressed all the time? I'm not enjoying life. Well, that's where you need to start. Like, it's like, because I'm a mechanic, by trade or whatever. And it's like, this is my analogy on what I'm talking about. People are literally sitting here, they're driving a car. They're like, Michael, I'm driving the car and I'm trying to enjoy the car, but these warning lights are blinking all over the dashboard, and it's annoying driving this car because these lights distract me, and I just don't enjoy driving the car. Well, that's how people's lives are. And I can see it because I have because I've went through all these processes, I have spiritual discernment. So I can talk to somebody for a couple minutes and see where they've been neglecting the warning lights in their life. I still got warning lights on my dashboard, but it ain't like it used to be. My dashboard used to look like a daggone Christmas tree. You know what I'm saying? But slowly but surely, I found the lights that were blinking and garnering the most attention, and that's where I started at. And like I said, with me, it was with women and dealing with women, and I was tired of being lonely and all that. And like I said, I'm gonna go into that a lot more. And like I said, man, y'all have, if that's an area that you struggle with in your life, I got a ton of videos on it on my YouTube channel and on my Facebook page. But more of them are on my YouTube channel because it goes back a little further. But and also, if you need counseling, go on the Spiritual Combat Facebook page and just message me on it. And I've talked to brothers before and helped them turn situations around. It's like, because to me, like, it seems like a daunting thing, and for a lot of people, it's an area they didn't even know. They weren't even aware that you could be aware of something like what I'm talking about. And but it, like I always say, the more personal, the more universal, is actually very simple overcoming a lot of these areas. But the first thing is being sensitive, being aware of what's going on in between your ears. You know what I'm saying? What's going on up in your head, in your spirit, in whatever you want to call that. Okay? And you'd be amazed at how this dictates the results this has. Things that tie in, how this dictates a lot of areas and a lot of things in your life. You know what I'm saying? Being unaware of certain problem areas. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, it's a big thing. All right, let me see. I got some notes I wrote down here. So this is what it does. So let me show you the cycle and how the cycle gets broke. So people are prideful. So if what the fear is, hey, I'm good. But if I start looking at this area, I'm not going to be good. And so I don't want to look at this area because I got to maintain this false self-confidence that is really pride. I got to maintain this so I can appear confident, because it could be trouble if I perceive trouble if I come off as not confident. Okay? So I'm a appear to be confident, but you can tell when somebody, they overcompensate when they're trying to be confident. When they with fake confidence is pride. That's a simpler way to say it. Pride is fake confidence. Okay? It's confidence faked. That's all pride is. Oh yeah, I know that. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, it's fake confidence. It overcompensates. And if you have pride, you're going to struggle in your relationships because it's the appearance of confidence. Okay? So what happens is when you tear that down, when you have that spirit of boldness and you're willing to tear down that fake confidence, which is really pride, and then you go through the pain, you look at yourself, you go through the process to get your mind right and all that stuff. And you face yourself, and then you build yourself up. Then you have true confidence. You know what I'm saying? You don't overcompensate. People are drawn to you because they could see this righteous peace, this righteous spiritual peace that you have, that defies all understanding or whatever. And I'm not trying to misquote that verse, but it's like you can't really articulate what that peace is you see on that person. You see what I'm saying? So you see that calmness, that peace that somebody has, and people are drawn to that. And you become a leader of men because you've went through all this process. It's like you don't. The prideful try to control and try to be a a dominant dictator. You know, that's what prideful people do. People who haven't been humiliated and humbled themselves because they've humiliated themselves and humbled themselves and been torn down, and then the Most High builds them up with natural self-confidence. You naturally become a leader of men. And people are just naturally drawn to that, and it's like, it's effortless. Okay? When you haven't been through that process, that you see a lot of these people who have to use manipulation and dominant behavior to lead people. Okay, so going back to my testimony and everything, my process. So I again went through the process. I got humiliated, and I realized that humiliation is part of the growth process. Being humble is part of growing spiritually, and being sensitive to where the problem areas in your life are at, to where the warning lights are going off in your life, to the problem issues that you really don't want to look at with boldness, and just say, look, let me be humble, and hey, I'm not what I'm telling myself I am. I need to focus on this and see who I really am. So going through that process, and then as you go through it, so for instance, in my life, like, okay, I started on the path at 27, and then 2 years later, I had grown, I got my family, but then I realized there was more growth that I had to go through. And then when I turned, when I started to become, when I turned 38, or by the time I was 38, I had the family, and then I was beginning to walk this thing out, and then I was beginning to become a leader of men. Just feeling led to be that or whatever, and just began teaching, and it's just a natural progression of things. You know what I'm saying? That's heavy. So Yehukanan said they use manipulation for gravitation. So they use people who have pride and are not willing to be. The last thing they will ever be is humiliated. So they have pride, and they're not gonna. Instead of looking at the warning lights that are on. Because what the analogy I gave was, what people are like is, they're like cars driving. They got all these warning lights and bells going off on their dashboard. And they're telling you, check engine oil, alternate low voltage, gas low, and all that stuff like that. And all these lights going off on their dashboard and warning sounds. And the humble person pulls the car over and begins trying to fix this stuff. The person with pride, which is fake confidence, he puts tape over the lights. He puts something to block all those lights out. He puts some earplugs in his ear to stop hearing the bells and whistles. Oil's pissing out the bottom of the car. He just puts some stop leak in there. He puts a paint job over whatever. He masks the issues so he can appear to be a properly fixed up car. And say, hey, y'all follow me. So that's what Yehukanan Yasha'Allah, that's the point he was making. That is what you have to do. That is a good analogy of a lot of leaders, or fake leaders, dictators that you might have out there, as opposed to somebody who's done the organic core level work and has become a natural leader of men, to where people are drawn to him in a magnetic way, as opposed to herded up and like trapped into forced into being with them, for lack of a better analogy, where people are through manipulation or trying to keep you or trying to be a dictator so they can say, hey, I lead these people. Yeah. And they can continue to feed that false confidence, which is pride, as opposed to somebody who I could care less if everybody stops following me tomorrow. Like and I am not my, I like, my understanding of leadership and leading is just, hey, I've done it first. I've done it first. So I'm going to just show you, I'm a lead by, they say lead by example. Well, hey, I've been through this. I've done this work. I done got my mind right. And I want to be an example of somebody who's done some of this work in these problem areas. And I also want to be be able to help people if they want to get their minds right. By what? Doing the teachings, the counseling, and stuff like that. You see what I'm saying? And I'm not trying to build anything. I want you to get your mind right and then move on and show other people how to get their minds right. I don't want to be your dictator or whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's the but that's the way you could discern the differences between people who, because that's something else I'm able to discern very quickly is, people who've done the work or people willing to do the work or people who are kind of scared of doing the work. And then some people are absolutely dead. They've stuffed this stuff away so far that when they fear people coming around and even talking about this type of stuff, and a lot of times you could, it's, I could go all into that, but the fact is that, we need to be sensitive. And again, reiterating what I was saying earlier, is being sensitive to what's going on with you, what's going on between these ears. That's what being sensitive is. Being aware of where your problem areas at, where the fires are at in your life, and putting them out. Not where all the warning bells and whistles and lights are going off in your life at, and not throwing a blanket over it and plugging your ears and saying, sound? What sound? You putting a piece of tape over the thing, the bell that's ringing. Like, there ain't no bell ringing. What bell you hear? Like the one you put the tape over so it won't ring, that one. Like, what buzzer you hear? The one you covered up over there. That buzzer's ringing. Oh, no, that's no big deal. It's not making any sound. I don't hear it. What about all them warning lights that you put the masking tape over to cover up? I mean, I don't see no lights, And then, and what that's an analogy of is what I used to try to do is I used to try to, hey man, you probably need to work on that. Because that was another area I had to grow in spiritually, is trying to get people to see stuff that they don't want to see. If people don't want to see themselves and work on themselves, you might try to bring it to them once, bring it to them twice, keep it moving. You know what I'm saying? So, let me see. Yeah, so... So yeah, man. So that is me breaking down what being sensitive really means. I think I got all the meat off the bone with that. But that's the key. That's where this work needs to be focused at. Like, because what I say, and we do, I'm not saying we don't need to study doctrine, because we do. I'm working on that. I'm studying a lot of doctrine right now, especially with a lot of end time events that have been occurring. But what my point is that the bulk of the study needs to be getting our minds right. And then the doctrine, or going deep into the doctrine, needs to be an appetizer, but the main course needs to be getting our mind right. And I what I found is a lot of times, at best, getting your mind right is an appetizer. And a lot of people I run into, a lot of times there is no appetizer. It's just all doctrine. You see what I'm saying? So, but over here with spiritual combat, yeah, my thing is there's so much doctrine for y'all to get out there that I don't even serve doctrine, not even as an appetizer on my menu. On my menu, it's all main course. Get your mind right. You see what I'm saying? Hey, shalom, Moshe. Good to see you in there. Shalom. Arinda, good to see you in there. Of course, my man, Yehukanan. Brian. Shalom, Malak. Good to see you in there. Shalom, man. But yeah, man, that's that's today's message. I hope it was informative. If it was, this is, like I said, this is the majority of what I teach on, getting your mind right. Because what you find is all the other stuff falls in line. You see what I'm saying? It's the theme running all through the book. It's one of the main themes through the whole book is, getting that mind right, getting that mind aligned to what the Most High Yah said to do. Is what? Get your mind right. You know what I'm saying? And this is what he said. And faith faith without works is dead. And this is the main thing you see what I'm saying? He wants us to do. So yeah, man, and it's a process. It can be painful, and what you find, you're going through this, and eventually you hit, like in the video games, you fight through the whole board on the video game, and at the end of each board, you come to the big boss. And the big boss I came to in this walk, when I got to the end of one of the boards in my life, was lust and pornography addiction. And the way I overcame that boss was prayer, fasting, and seeking the Lord. I comment on one of my videos that I put on YouTube about overcoming lust, and some of the teachings I've done on lust and porn addiction and molestation and rape, and overcoming all those issues. And like the book says, some of this stuff only comes out by prayer and fasting. But you ain't going to be willing to face some of this stuff if you got a prideful spirit on you. And it'll manifest, because when a real man of the Most High Yah, who's willing to be humiliated, who's not scared, when a real man of Yah comes around, they can see that spirit on people. But yeah, man, it's a heavy thing. So yeah, it's definitely a heavy thing. Shalom, Sister Sonia. I think I pronounced your name right. Good to see you in there. Shalom, Sonia Jackson. Good to see all y'all tuning in. Yeah, so definitely, if this video blessed you, definitely share it, put it on your timeline. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to the Spiritual Combat channel. And after you subscribe to the Spiritual Combat channel, click that notification bell that's right there next to it, so you receive notifications whenever I go live, because I don't upload videos. I always do them live. You know what I'm saying? And same thing, if you're on Facebook, go to the Spiritual Combat Facebook page and hit the follow button, and then hit that drop down and select those options so you can receive the notifications when I go live. But yeah, man, this is like where I focus at, because I realize, especially in the Hebrew community, there is a void for it's few and far between where you see people really banging hard on spiritual development, getting your mind right. You know what I'm saying? Um, that spiritual growth, with which once you do the spiritual growth, then the outward growth follows naturally. It's not forced and willed. Okay, it's not a mechanical law keeping, but it's an organic, natural flow of the law keeping, because you understand the spirit of the law. You understand, okay, the most you understand the genius behind the law, statutes, and commandments, the surface ones and the inner ones that the Most High Yah has laid out for us. You see what I'm saying? So yeah. So anyway, with that said, appreciate all y'all tuning in. Hold on one second. So yeah, I appreciate y'all tuning in. Appreciate y'all supporting me and everything. Definitely share this video, tag people in it and everything like that. Because at the end of the day, you know, you see a lot of division in the Hebrew Israelite community over, I put it like this, you know, man, I'm just getting show after show idea. All right, hold on one sec. Okay, all right. But what you see, what I see at the source of all the division that I in the Hebrew community, what's always at the center of it, almost 99.6899 of the time, almost 100% of the time, was at the core of the division that you see in the Hebrew community is folks ain't got their minds right. They don't, you know, me and Yehukanan, like we talk about sometimes, like me, this is something that people don't understand. And like they really, like the book of Acts is a good, you got to really study that book and just the whole Bible. You see it throughout. Everybody, when we were a nation, when we had our government, when we had our country, and we had our businesses and our economy, everybody in the Hebrew community was not besties. You know, they weren't best friends, and I'm going to go over his house, and we need to get along and be best friends forever and all. No. People had people that they liked, that they dealt with. And then they had other people that, you know, we really don't vibe like that. But on the same note, on an economic basis, when it came to business and economics and government and all that, you still go do business with them. You still, if they hit you up, hey man, how you feel about doing this? Or hey, can you do this? Yeah, I'm there. That's cool, you know? But everybody, so I think that's part of the thing a lot of people don't understand. A lot of people don't understand what it means, and we're coming into this. I understand. We're coming out of this amnesia that was done by design. So don't get me twisted. I understand the miracle of what's going on right now of us getting our identity back. And I'm excited and happy and so amazed by Israel, the wake up and the progress we're making. But this is the next step in that process, is understanding that we're not supposed, like any of my brothers and sisters, my Hebrew brothers and sisters, if they need something, I'm going to help them out. I mean, we might not be best friends, but we are a nation. So if I can do business with you, I'm going to do business with you. If you got something I like, you know, boom, we're going to rock with it. That don't mean we're going to be besties and all that stuff. You know, you find people that you are, I guess they call it kindred spirits, where it's like, yo, this dude my brother from another mother. Like, dang, like me and this dude think the same. You know, it's like, whoa, you know. And but we need to understand that. But we also need to understand that we, at the end of the day, we do have to be a nation. We do have to count on each other. You know, like I was saying before, I know Judah Mack, that situation is a perfect example. He left IUIC and they had them burning up his shirts and told them they can't buy anything from him now. Yo, this dude's still a brother. So now these brothers will go buy a shirt from Walmart before they buy a shirt from Judah Mack. And Judah Mack teaching Torah, keeping the book. You can't, man. Stuff like that kind of still get me pretty heated. Hey, shalom, Jimmy Harris. Jimmy put, the division is because many lack the spirit and has the letter. This can only produce pride. That's right. That's right. That's facts, man. And when he says lack the spirit, is they don't have that spirit where they're willing to be sensitive to what's going on in them and willing to look at themselves. You know, and that's why, like I said, this lesson I'm doing is timely, because that's where we're at now in our awakening as a nation process. And I hear it, you know, again, I'm in a unique position to where I deal with the Hebrew community all across the board. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, I see, you know, I hear about division and stuff that's going on in the Hebrew community. And it's not all just division. It's also repositioning. What we have to understand is certain things weren't meant to be connected to other things. They belonged in another area of the body. So it's also a repositioning. But then sometimes it's a lack of spiritual development. People ain't operate, you know, they, like brother Jimmy said, they don't got the spirit. They got a spirit of division. They got low moral character, which low moral character is your, are you really walking these laws, statutes, commandments out inside? You know what I'm saying? You really loving your brother as you love yourself. Well, a lot of people don't love themselves. How's the Bible define love? Keeping the Most High Yah's commandments. Well, they keep them externally, which is love, but they don't keep them internally. They're not doing the Proverbs work. They're not studying the book of Proverbs and applying that's to themselves. And Proverbs is a breakdown of how to love yourself and love your brother. Same thing with the book of Sirach or Ecclesiasticus, or which is Ecclesiasticus. Those books are the same, which is in the Apocrypha. All that book is Proverbs on steroids. But people you notice you don't really hear people talking about that book too much? You really don't hear people teaching that book? Because you can't get too far into Ecclesiasticus before you got to be like, pause. Like you'll feel overburdened for all the work you got to do on yourself and get your mind right. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so you're hooking on and say, yeah, the way IUIC treated Judah Mack was ridiculous. And this is the thing, man, because, you know, and I'd like to reach out to IUIC to see about patching that thing up, because IUIC has done a lot of good work that I like. They've made some awesome documentaries where they're bringing out heavy information, like the Iconoclast documentary, where they talk about how they change the pictures. Like, they've done some good work, but they got some areas they need to work on. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, man. But and don't get it twisted, man. I'm proud of where we are at as a nation. I mean, think about this, man. We were beaten, enslaved, our memory wiped, some of the smartest people from these other nations have sat at tables and strategized on how to destroy us and keep us destroyed. And for a brother to come out from that deliberate, crafty counsel that's been taken against us and to come into this and even on an external level begin to keep these laws, statutes, and commandments is a miracle, and all praises to the Most High. You know what I'm saying? But let's push it to the next level. That's all I'm saying. You see what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, people could, these scoffers, these ignorant people could say what they want, but people who are getting in this book, who come out of these hoods and these humble beginnings and the oppression that we get, our families are destroyed. They oppress us at our jobs, and with the cops oppress us. This whole society is oppressive and taking crafty counsel against us. And people come out of this. It's just amazing. And people are going to begin to get jealous of the awakening that's happening with us. So, I am like the camps. I'm proud of the camps. The people who are in Christianity, who've turned their lives around using the Bible, our book, in Christianity. I'm proud of them. You know? And everything in between. This whole movement, I'm proud of what has happened because of the odds that have been stacked against us. And we've taken, out of all the odds and the deception that's been stacked against us, we've taken the Most High's instructions and turned them to turn our lives around. I know those people up there, the wicked that are in rule at the top, are sitting there like, they know. You know, they know. So you ain't gonna see me on there bashing anybody out there for what you are gonna see me doing is pushing people to continue growing and don't get stagnant. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, man. So yeah. Anyway, y'all, I appreciate y'all tuning in. Again, you watching Spiritual Combat. Y'all keep up the fight. The battle continues. And I'm Michael Israel, and shalom, y'all.
We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world. It's a spiritual combat. It's a spiritual combat. It's a spiritual combat. It's a spiritual combat. It's not the heat of the formation. You gotta get ready for the day. So follow your brothers and sisters. We gotta turn back to the scriptures. Stop making it all about you. Them preachers, they got it confused. Come out of her. Cause Yahuwah is our deliverer. Don't be ashamed. Don't be ashamed. Cause nobody's perfect. All by his name. All by his name, seeking to be worthy. We should be coming together. There's power and unity. It's time to come into the order, cause we are a living prophecy. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against power.